What if I told you that the strongest people in the world almost never fight, not because they are weak, but because they already won before the fight even started? Every argument, every conflict, every silent tension you feel with someone is not physical, it is psychological. The truth is, the person who understands the mind controls the outcome. Today, you are going to learn the psychological secrets that let you win without shouting, without stress, without conflict, because real power is invisible, and once you see it, you can never unsee it. Say with me until the end, because what I am about to share will change the way you see every conversation, every silence, and every person around you. Forever welcome to Human Hour. What you are about to hear is not about manipulation, it's about awareness, because whether you realize it or not, people are already using these tactics on you. In conversations, in relationships, our work, even in silence. So, the question is not, should you understand psychology? The real question is, will you stay unaware, or will you finally take control? Let us begin. The person who reacts lows. Imagine this: someone insults you, they raise their voice, they provoke you, they try to pull you into their emotional storm, and you react. That is the exact moment you lose, because the second you react emotionally, you hand over complete control. Here is what most people never understand. People who provoke you are not trying to win the argument. They are trying to take over your emotional state. They want to see you shake. They want to see you crack. They want to see you become small, and if they succeed, even for just 1 second, they already won. Now, here is the dark psychological truth that nobody talks about. Every person who has ever tried to make you angry was not attacking your words. They were attacking your inner world. They wanted to enter the part of you that is still unguarded, the part of you that reacts before you even think. The moment they get in there, they own you. So, what do you do? There's a technique called emotional non-reactivity. Is not something they teach in school. It is not something you see celebrated in movies, but it is the single most powerful skill a human being can develop. When someone expects anger, give them calm. When they expect defense, give them silence. When they expect a fight, give them nothing at all, and watch what happens. Watch their face change. Watch them shift in their seat. Watch confusion replace confidence on their face, because now they do not know how to control you, and when people cannot control you, they panic, they lose their own composure, they begin to make mistakes, and that is exactly where you want them. This is not cruelty. This is mastering. The river does not argue with the rock. It simply flows around it, and eventually the river wins every single time. Silence is the most dangerous weapon. in silence is uncomfortable. That is why most people rush to fill it. They talk too fast, they explain too much, they give away everything just to escape the discomfort of an empty pause. But powerful people use silence intentionally, and it changes everything. When you stay silent after someone speaks, you force them to think. You create an invisible tension in the room. Most importantly, you make them reveal more than they ever intended. 2. This happens because the human mind cannot tolerate a vacuum. Silence feels like pressure, and under pressure, most people will say anything just to make the discomfort stop. They will apologize even when they are right. They will over-explain even when explanation is not needed. They will give you exactly the information you are waiting for. Here is a simple practice. Next time someone challenges you, look at them steadily, say nothing for 3 full seconds, then respond slowly and calmly. That pause alone shifts the entire power dynamic in the room, because now you are not reacting, you are choosing them. Choice is power. When you speak without thinking, you are a passenger. When you pause before speaking, you become the driver. There is something ancient about this. Wisest people in history were known not for how much they said, but for how carefully they chose when to say. Eat a general who speaks too quickly on the battlefield reveals his plan to the enemy. Person who responds too quickly in conversation reveals their fear to everyone in the room. Learn to sit inside the silence. Learn to make it work for you. Because silence is not empty. It's full of answers the other person cannot help but give you. Humans are wired to connect. We trust people who feel familiar. We open up to people who feel like us. We lower our guard around people who seem to understand. Uzan. The fastest way to create that feeling without saying a single word about itis. Mirroring. Mirroring means subtly reflecting the other person's tone, their energy, their body language, and even the words they choose. Not obviously, not in a way they can detect, but so naturally that they simply begin to feel at ease around you. Someone speaks slowly, you slow down. If someone is calm, you stay calm. Someone uses particular phrases, you weave those same phrases back into your response. Something extraordinary happens when you do this. The other person starts to feel understood. When people feel understood, they lower their defenses. They stop performing. They stop protecting themselves. They begin to reveal who they actually aren't. Now here is where it becomes truly powerful. Once they are aligned with you, once they are in that comfortable state of feeling mirrored and understood, you can begin to lead, because people do not resist those they feel connected. Toa. person who feels misunderstood will fight you at every turn, but a person who feels genuinely understood will follow your lead. Almost without realizing it, this is not a trick, it is the deepest form of human communication. It is how great therapists work, how brilliant negotiators operate, how the most charismatic people in any room seem to make everyone feel like the most important person there. You stop trying to win, you start trying to understand. Paradoxically, the moment you truly understand someone, you gain more influence over them than any argument ever could. Every interaction has a frame. A frame is simply who defines reality in the conversation. If someone walks up to you and says, "You always mess things up," that is a frame. If you defend yourself against, if you say no, "I do not," or "You are wrong," or "Let me explain," you just accepted their frame. You stepped into their version of reality. Now you are playing their game by their rules, on their territory. But here is what you do instead. You observe it from a distance. You treat it like something that exists separately from you. For example, when someone says, "You always mess things up," you look at them calmly and say, "That is an interesting perspective." 3 words. That is it. Hands. Suddenly, everything shifts, because now you are not inside their version of events, defending yourself. You are a neutral observer, looking at their claim from the outside. You are not agreeing with them. You are not dismissing them. You are simply refusing to let their reality become your reality. Here is the underlying principle. Whoever defines the frame controls the conversation. When someone accuses you and you respond in kind, you accepted their frame. When someone criticizes you and you apologize, immediately you accepted their frame. But when you pause and respond from a place of calm distance, you have broken it. And now you get to set a new one. Instead of saying, "I did not do that," say, "Let us look at what actually happened." Say, "Here is another way to see this." You are not arguing. You are reframed. You are gently but firmly placing the conversation on different ground, and on that new ground you hold all the power. This is the one that will feel most unnatural, but it works every single time without exception. When someone attacks, you agree with them, not completely, not out of weakness, but strategically. And watch what happens to the entire dynamic. Here is an example. Someone says, "You are so irresponsible." Every instinct in your body wants to push back, but instead, you look at them and say, "Yeah, I can see why it might look that way." From where you are standing now, what happens in their mind? All the energy they built up for the fight, all the emotional charge behind their words, it has nowhere to go because you did. Not push back, and if nothing pushes back against a force, that force collapses. This confuses them deeply because they expected conflict and you gave them acceptance. They expected resistance and you gave them understanding. Now, something remarkable happens. They begin to calm down. Almost against their will, their defenses lower. The aggression starts to drain, and in that window of calm, you calmly and clearly present your own perspective. Now, you are not fighting, you are leading. The ancient martial arts teach this principle. You do not meet force with force. You redirect it. Q. Use the attacker's own energy to guide them where you want them to go. The same principle works in every conversation, in every relationship, in every conflict you will ever face. Agree. First disarm the tension, then lead with clarity. The greatest psychological advantage any person can possess is emotional detachment, not coldness, not indifference, not the absence of feeling, but the ability to feel without being controlled by what you feel. When you are emotionally attached to winning every argument, you become predictable. People can pull your strings because they know exactly which levers to push. They know how to make you react. They know how to make you panic. They know how to make you do things that are not in your own interest. But when you practice emotional detachment, something changes. You can walk away from a conversation that is going nowhere. You can stay calm when everyone else is losing their mind. You can think clearly when the person across from you is drowning in their own emotion. And the person who thinks clearly always wins. Here is the most powerful question you can ask yourself in any difficult moment. Is this worth my energy? Most of the time, the honest answer is no. And the moment you genuinely accept that answer, everything changes. Walking away is not losing. Walking away is a choice, and choice is power only. People who have nothing inside them fight every battle. The person who knows their own worth chooses which battles deserve their presence, and that act of choosing, that calm, deliberate withdrawals, ends a message that no shouting ever could. Statements create resistance, create reflection. This is one of the most overlooked psychological truths in human communication. When you tell someone they are wrong, they immediately activate their defenses. Their ego steps forward. Their walls go up, and now you are not having a conversation, you are having a war. But when you ask someone a genuine question, something entirely different happens. Their mind turns inward. They have to think. They have to explain themselves. They have to justify their position. And that process, something fascinating happens. Most people, when they are forced to slow down and truly examine what they believe, discover that their belief is not as solid as they thought they weaken their own argument without you saying a single critical word. Instead of saying, "You are wrong," ask, "What makes you see it that way?" instead of saying, "That does not make sense," ask, "Can you help me understand how you arrived at that?" Instead of arguing your point, task, "What would change your mind on this?" Burden of proof shifts the energy, shifts the entire conversation, shifts. Now you are not the one being questioned, you are the one doing the questioning. You are not on trial, they are examining themselves. This is the technique used by the greatest philosophers, the sharpest negotiators, and the most effective leaders in history. They rarely declared, they asked, and in asking, they revealed the truth that declarations could never reach. The most powerful move in any situation is knowing when to leave. Not every battle is worth fighting. Not every person is worth convincing, deserves your presence, and not every moment of tension deserves your energy. When you walk away calmly from a situation that is beneath you, send a message that cannot be answered. Do not need to win this, and that is real power. Here is the psychology behind it. People who need to win every argument are driven by fear. Fear that they are not enough. Fear that if they do not win, people will think less of them, and that fear makes them easy to control, because you can always bait a person who needs to. When you can always manipulate a person who cannot walk away, but the person who can leave, who can smile and turn around and go back to their life, that person is impossible to control, because you cannot use winning as bait for someone who does not need to win. You cannot use fear as a weapon against someone who is not afraid. Walking away is not giving up. Walking away is the clearest signal that you have somewhere better to be. There is nothing more powerful than that. All of these techniques, fray single one, means nothing if you do not have internal control, because real power is not what you do to other people, is who you are when nobody is watching. It is the voice inside your head when things go wrong. It is how you treat yourself in moments of failure. Is whether you know your own worth without needing someone else to confirm it. Confidences, foreignness, emotional stabilities are not things you perform. These are things you build, and they are your foundation. Without them, every technique becomes hollow. Without them, the silence you use feels like fear instead of power. Without them, the mirror technique becomes imitation instead of connection. Without them, walking away feels like running, but with them, everything changes. Even the simplest pause becomes powerful. Even the softest word lands with weight. If your presence in a room shifts the energy before you say a single thing, so The real work is not learning techniques. The real work is understanding your own emotions deeply enough that they no longer control you. Is developing the ability to look at your reactions and ask why. Is building the habit of choosing how you respond instead of being chosen by your impulses. It is knowing what you value and refusing to compromise. It for anyone when you have that nobody can control you, not through anger, not through flattering, not through fear, not through silence, because you already know who you are. That knowledge is the most unshakable power in the world. Winning without fighting is not about defeating other people. It is about mastering yourself, because the real battle was never outside. It was always inside. It was always in the space between the trigger and your response in the moment before the word leaves your mouth, in the pause before the reaction takes over. And once you win that inner battle, you do not need to fight anymore. You do not need to raise your voice. You do not need to convince anyone of anything. You simply show up, and the outcome arranges itself, because you have become the kind of person who does not need to fight to win. If this changed the way you see every conversation, every silence, and every person in your life, then you are already ahead of most people on this planet. Subscribe to Human Hour, because the more you understand the mind, the less the world can control you, and the more powerful you become in silence.